standard.
So before moving into the final waypoint, which is waypoint 2, the crew will execute another manual flight test like we saw earlier in the day, but this time in what we consider the near field, which just means it's close to the station. The crew will command a hold at 220 meters and then conduct a series of maneuvers. First, they'll fly Dragon to the center line of the docking approach, precisely lining it up with the International Docking Adapter. Then they'll do a number of what are called translational maneuvers, using the Draco thrusters on Dragon to move it along the different axes, checking in with the ground on how much propellant is used. Of course, Dragon is designed to be fully autonomous, so this is to demonstrate Dragon's ability to perform controlled maneuvers like braking and even retreating, as well as to determine position and velocity relative to the station. And once that's complete, they will transition control back over to the Dragon flight computer to resume automated docking. After the flight test is complete, teams in Hawthorne here and in Houston will do a quick go, no-go to resume the approach and then start to move in toward waypoint 2. Once Dragon starts moving in, they will do a final go, no-go for docking.
Now, once Dragon is only 20 meters away at waypoint 2, the spacecraft then focuses on aligning its docking system with the International Docking Adapter. We may hear the call-out CHOP, or CHOP, which stands for Crew Hands-Off Point, and that'll happen a little less than 30 seconds before docking. At that point, it means that any aborts that have to be done, that means that at that point, any aborts to the docking procedure will have to be done automatically by Dragon.
And then it is the moment we've all been waiting for, besides launch today, obviously. When our crew arrives at the space station, Dragon will fly in and make contact with the International Docking Adapter, giving us what we call soft capture, so the work isn't done yet. The soft capture ring then retracts until sensors indicate it's time for 12 hooks to drive in place and give us a hard capture, firmly securing Dragon to its new home on the space station. Meanwhile, the space station crew, namely Chris Cassidy, will manually pressurize the vestibule, which is the area between the Dragon hatch and the station hatch, and power, audio, and data connections will be established from the station to Dragon. Then it's time for leak checks and hatch opening, which is currently timelined to come about 2 hours following docking.
Okay, good to know. And a little fun fact for all of you out there. Now, prior to the installation of the International Docking Adapter, or IDA, as you may have read about it, this port is also where space shuttles used to dock on the station as well. So, like I said before, Doug Hurley, spacecraft commander on board Dragon today, was the pilot of the very last space shuttle mission. That shuttle docked to the very same place that Crew Dragon will be docking tomorrow morning. That means that Doug, who was one of the last astronauts to depart the International Space Station via shuttle, will actually be opening up the very same hatch he closed nearly a decade ago. I just think about that and my heart rate starts going up again. So like we have seen, Crew Dragon has a very busy morning ahead, evening and busy. But even in space, it takes two to tango. The International Space
I think one of the things that was important in the development of the suit was to make it easy to use. Something.
Congratulations on the successful flight of DM-2 to the ISS. We are so glad to see the new US vehicle is now flying to the ISS. The vehicle is very important for ISS program. It provides more flexibility and progress of the ISS. JAXA has been working together with NASA many years.
thrusters that it would be at least 24 hours before the trajectory would move inside that imaginary approach ellipsoid.
Afterward, Dragon will get the go to move inside the keep out sphere. This is another checkpoint that consists of an imaginary sphere around the station with a radius of 200 meters. Flight controllers use this to monitor all arriving and departing vehicles, whether they have crew on them or whether they are cargo vehicles. This is another chance to confirm all of the guidance, navigation, and control systems are working correctly on Dragon before bringing it closer to the space station. It carries a similar requirement on the orbital trajectory that if Dragon were to somehow, for some reason, lose control of its thrusters, Dragon itself and the space station would be safe for 4 orbits or 6 hours rather than the 24 hours required to enter the approach ellipsoid.
So at this hour, the Crew Dragon crew and the International Space Station crew are both asleep, hopefully getting some much-needed rest in the midst of all this excitement. The station trio, NASA astronaut and station commander Chris Cassidy and Roscosmos cosmonauts Anatoly Ivanishyn and Ivan Wagner went to sleep around 4:30 p.m. Central Time. They'll continue that sleep period until just around 1 a.m. Central Time on Sunday morning, ready to begin an exciting day of work. Then around 5:35 a.m. Central Time, Cassidy has a rendezvous conference with ground controllers to review rendezvous procedures that the Crew Dragon crew will be executing later in the morning. He will then move on to begin setting up tools that will be used for leak checks between the space station and Crew Dragon after docking, as well as setting up photo TV equipment to capture the historic hatch opening later that day. From then, Cassidy will move into his midday meal. Then around 8:25 a.m. Central Time, Cassidy will begin monitoring the approach of Crew Dragon from the cupola workstation on board the International Space Station as it begins its initiation burn to bring it below the station, then in front of the station for final approach and docking. Once the hooks are driven and form a hard mate between Crew Dragon and the International Space Station, which is scheduled for 9:44 a.m. Central Time, Cassidy will then work in tandem with Bankin and Hurley to equalize pressure between the two systems. And as of now, all International Space Station systems are still a go, so we'll toss it back to Hawthorne for an update.
Thanks so much, Courtney. We have had a busy day and another one coming up tomorrow. So in the meantime, enjoy some views, this one from the International Space Station, maybe some tunes as we get into the evening.
Yeah, like we said, we'll be bringing you coverage all throughout the morning, day, night, wherever it is. You might be tuning in all around the world, and we thank you for joining us for sure. And yeah, we're going to be bringing you coverage all the way through Bob and Doug's entry onto the International Space Station. So keep hanging with us, and we'll see you in a few.
35 minutes to go until launch. Propellant loading began. Filling the fuel tanks for the thrusters lasted just under 10 minutes and helped Dragon maintain that 10-kilometer orbit, roughly co-elliptic with the space station, meaning it's staying there rather than just reaching it at the apogee. It was a busy day.
It was a crazy day. It was a historic day, right?
It was, and it's an honor to be a part of it. So let's look back, relive a little bit of it again, and take a look at some of the day's highlights.
Is fully autonomous, meaning the spacecraft does all the navigating and burns to get the station on its own. The far-field manual flight test allowed our crew to test the systems that would allow them to override Dragon's computers and maneuver manually should they ever need to take control. The Dragon control team here in Hawthorne and the space station flight controllers in Mission Control Houston. The teams will transition to integrated operations about 45 minutes before the approach initiation.
During the approach, the SpaceX flight controllers here in Hawthorne will work in tandem with the NASA team in Houston to activate and test several of the systems on Dragon, and that's including a bidirectional communications with the space station using the C2V2 system, which stands for Common Communications for Visiting Vehicles. This will set up a data stream from Dragon to the space station and provides another path for Dragon telemetry to come to the ground and gives an additional command capability to astronauts aboard the station. They'll also maneuver Dragon to the proper attitude and initialize the navigation sensors used for our very precise, very detailed approach to the International Space Station.
That's right. Both thrusters on the Endeavour capsule will fire for the approach initiation burn when Dragon is at that 2.5 kilometers below the station and about 7 kilometers behind it. This will swing Dragon up until it's about 400 meters or about a quarter mile directly below the station. This maneuver will also move Dragon inside one of 2 checkpoints around the station that requires a set of go, no-go poles with the different control teams. The first checkpoint is called the approach ellipsoid, or as you might hear it called, the AE. It's an imaginary shape measuring 4 kilometers by 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers, essentially a large 3-dimensional oval surrounding the space station. Before Dragon's given permission to move inside the AE, the capsule is configured to be on what is known as a 24-hour safe trajectory. This means that if Dragon lost any control of its thrusters or its control, it would be at least 24 hours before its trajectory would move inside the approach ellipsoid, which gives the crew and support plenty of time to help.
Audio and data connections are established from the station to Dragon. And then it'll be time for leak checks. And then we'll be welcoming the 2 new crew members aboard the International Space Station with hatch opening not too long after.
There you go. And a little fun fact for you, prior to installation of the International Docking Adapter, this port is also where the space shuttles used to dock. As some of you might know, spacecraft commander Doug Hurley on behind it. This will swing Dragon up until it's about only 400 meters. That's a lap around a typical running track. It's that far away below the station. This maneuver will also move Dragon inside one of 2 checkpoints around the station that requires a set of go, no-go poles with the different control teams. The first checkpoint is called the approach ellipsoid, or as you might hear it called, it's the AE. It's an imaginary shape. Think of it as a giant 3D oval, 4 kilometers wide, 2 kilometers long, 2 kilometers tall. Essentially, it's a large 3-dimensional oval, like I said. Before Dragon's given permission to move inside the AE, the capsule is configured to be on what is known as the 24-hour safe trajectory. This means that if Dragon lost all control to its thrusters for some reason, it would be at least 24 hours before its trajectory would move inside that AE.
So after the approach ellipsoid at 6:03 a.m. Pacific time, Dragon gets the go, hopefully, to move inside the keep-out sphere. That's another